This is a show about the ferocious pursuit of incremental growth from the inside out. And it's also a show about whatever else I feel like talking about, no matter how random, irrelevant, or confusing the subject might be. You are listening to the Emotionally Excellent Man Show, and I'm your host, Jason McKenzie. Well, welcome to a very exciting new chapter in my podcasting journey, and hopefully one that parallels your own journey. So, first of all, I want to bid a fond adieu, perhaps, to the Mental Health Warriors podcast. It's been, I think, 56 episodes, full episodes, and a bunch of microdoses, and it's been an incredible journey over the past year and a bit. It's been just over a year, actually, and God, I have learned so much. I've learned so much by talking to amazing people. I've learned so much by reflecting on the conversations that I've had. And I've learned just a ton about how to communicate with people, how to ask better questions, how to stop saying that's interesting at the end of every cool thing that I heard someone said. And I want that journey for myself to continue. Actually, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine last week, and he said journey is like the most overused word in personal development, but I fucking love it. Journey. So I want to continue that. But as I have grown as a person and met more people and had more conversations, I realized that I want to expand beyond the scope of mental health. And I want to explain what that means in a minute here. But I've noticed that, through the Mental Health Warriors community and all the people I've talked to and a lot of men from all over the world, from all walks of life, there's so many people who are dealing with some variation of the same thing. And that is a lack of awareness, I would say, or lack of knowledge about the skills required to fashion what I'm calling emotional excellence. So, for example, let's say like somebody who's dealing with a mental health issue, for example, they may have experienced trauma. And it's as tragic as that is, and I don't want to do anything to minimize it whatsoever because it's fucking devastating. Part of somebody's path towards healing, like a lot of people don't have the skills around emotional excellence because they'd never been taught. When would you be taught? I'm 45. My dad was born just after World War II, grew up on a farm. He wasn't going to fucking teach me. He taught me all kinds of other amazing things, but it certainly he wasn't going to teach me how to be emotionally connected to myself or with other people or how to develop those skills. And a lot of people my age are in the same boat. So when I look at people dealing with mental health issues, say who have experienced trauma or invalidating experiences, most of them don't have those skills either because pretty much nobody has those skills, right? So even if they hadn't experienced trauma, I feel like they would not be leading a meaningful and fulfilled life, as meaningful and fulfilled a life as possible, just like most people don't. And just like I didn't for the longest time. In some ways I still don't, but I'm always trying to learn. Always trying to learn. And so what I became really fascinated about was human emotion and how I can develop my skills and my knowledge in this very profoundly important area, right? So that's when I started thinking, framing everything in the context of mental health is starting to feel limiting to me because I feel like I could learn these new skills and teach other people while I'm learning and talk to cool people and all that kind of stuff, and touch people beyond the scope of mental health. I think I may have just said that. So, but still make a contribution to that community of people who are dealing with mental health issues, because I feel like so much of it is related to our own lack of self-awareness, our own misunderstanding and judgments about the emotions we feel and the emotions that we think we're supposed to feel and the emotions we fucking think other people are feeling because they're pretending they all got their shit together and blah, blah, blah. So as I started to learn about this stuff, I was like, oh my God, this feels like the thing that is really, really interesting to me. So and it's really because as I do a lot of coaching with men and run mastermind groups, it's always, almost always the same type of thing where guys don't have skills, say around, understanding and overcoming limiting beliefs, understanding what their emotions mean, why we tell ourselves the stories we tell ourselves, how to set goals, how to, identify core values and make values aligned choices. Like there's a million different things that I'm going to explore on the podcast as I want to learn. And again, as I want you to learn along with me. But the point being that I really want to I feel a moral obligation to help men live more values-aligned lives and develop higher levels of mastery over the skills that create emotional excellence, which then in turn creates deeper relationships with the people that we care the most about. Our spouses and our kids, and it helps us pass on a legacy of teaching them those skills. It helps foster deep and profound human connection and conversation. It gives people the courage to go first. It gives people the tools to be able to reframe failure, and it makes people, and the podcast is targeted towards men because men are who I primarily deal with, but I want to give you an example of something that happened a few weeks ago as of the time of this recording, this podcast. So I was I was sort of co-assistant facilitating this summit for 70 men around the world. And I gave the opening talk, which was a huge honor. And one of the things I asked the audience was, who here has some kind of voice in their head telling themselves that either they don't belong here in some way, they're not good enough, maybe they don't have anything to offer, like blah, blah, blah. Every fucking guy put up his hand. Every single one. And I put up my hand too, because who the fuck am I to be standing here like doing this opening address and helping facilitate this thing, right? But that's very, very telling, because it's funny how if I think I'm not good enough and everybody else, how can everybody think they're not good enough? That makes no fucking sense when you actually stop and think about it. Someone's got to be good enough. But the point is, these guys in this room all had the courage, despite that narrative in their head, they all had the courage to do it anyways. And then what we did over the course of the next few days was we really got deeply into some very important learnings and connection and group work and appreciative inquiry and all that kind of stuff that really opened people's eyes, helped them form more meaningful relationships with one another, and walk out of there with a better developed toolkit, let's say, to, approach the world. So these types of skills, though, they're not magical superpowers. Like when you look at somebody and you say, oh my God, that guy's got his shit together. He's got all these practices in place. He has this ability to communicate with people. He seems to be in touch with his own emotions, but doesn't look like a fucking wussy at the same time. Imagine that. What a concept. Like, people look at people like that and their own judgment in their own fucking head tells them that person has some special secret sauce that I don't have. And therefore they're different than me. I'm my average or below average self, and it's fucking static, and there's nothing I can do about it. This podcast is here to teach you that that's fucking bullshit. Okay? Total bullshit. And if I can, oh man, through the conversations I'm going to have, if I can touch one person's life and make them realize, you know what? You are not an ass clown. You're just not. Despite what you're fucking telling yourself, okay? We all have moments when we feel like one, but the purpose of this podcast is for me to learn more. Well, let me back up and say, the reason I actually do this podcast has evolved a little bit over time. So when I first started doing the Mental Health Warriors podcast, what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk to cool people and, help give them a platform to share their message to the world and have cool conversations. I mean, that was pretty much, I think, what I was mostly thinking about. Now, where I'm at is that I am on a lifelong learning journey, and I recognize that every single conversation I have is a powerful opportunity to learn. I feel like I've done 95% of the learning in my own personal development journey. There's the word again, journey, has been in conversation with people, right? So I want to learn. And a podcast is a fucking awesome way to continue, to be able to learn, because it gives you an opportunity to talk to people that you might not otherwise have had the chance to speak to. And so I want to learn. I want to record myself learning, and then I want you to learn along with me so we can all be a little bit less fucked up together. That's really what the goal is. So at the end of this, whatever this phase of my life is where I'm doing this podcast, if I can help a few men be slightly less fucked up, just like me, I will consider that a huge win. But yeah, so that's really what I want to do here. Now, I'm not going to just talk to experts, because some of the most amazing conversations happen when two guys are getting together and shooting the shit. Well, it doesn't have to be two guys. I'll really talk to anybody. But two people getting together and shooting the shit about all kinds of different things, and the conversation going wherever it happens to go without any boundaries or, preconceived ideas about what the conversation should look like. So I've noticed that as I do the podcast, I'm really trying to move away from an interview sort of format to more of a conversational type of format. Think of it like a junior Joe Rogan, who's my absolute favorite podcaster, along with, probably everybody else that listens to him. So I want it to be more conversational. So I'm going to have people on who I think would be interesting to talk to, regardless of whatever the subject is, because I think even those conversations themselves can be a powerful lesson about how to ask meaningful and important questions that elicit dialogue, how to have my paradigms challenged, which I'm totally open to. Not always right away. I usually have to do a little bit of reflection, but I want those moments to be captured and shared so other people can learn with them. And maybe I will get defensive, and maybe I'll sound like a fucking tool. That's okay. I want that to be shared too, because it's all part of the journey. If I feel uncomfortable, and in a moment, man, there's nothing I would love better than to have that shared on digital audio, and shared with the world, because I'm sure it could help somebody else. Now, I'm also going to be doing some things where I'm going to record some still doing the microdose concepts. So when I feel like I have something that I want to talk to about, or something that's interesting to me, there probably won't be a schedule because I'm not really very good at that. But when there are some of those moments that I have something to say, I'm going to record those as well, and just maybe a 10-minute episode. I'll try to do it at least once a week. Now, the other thing I'm going to try to do, I totally fucking failed at this before, because my mornings are kind of jam-packed with all my morning routine stuff, but I really want to do some expressive writing, which is recording a quick podcast every morning. So expressive writing is really just barfing out the shit in your head. It can be on paper, hence why it's called writing, but it can also be... the medium is irrelevant, right? So I really think that there is there's a lot of value in being able to get that stuff out of your head. And I've noticed that when I've done it, I have some pretty interesting insights, actually. So, and it just feels good. There's hundreds of research papers that show getting the shit out of your head is like very therapeutic and very good for your emotional health and well-being. So I'm going to be doing that too. And that's really important to me. So, I mean, that might get annoying, but I don't really fucking care. You can listen or you can not listen, and I'll probably totally screw it up and not do it every morning. And I'm not going to make any type of commitment to try to do it every morning. I think what I'll do is I'll set a monthly goal for myself, like one of the things we do in our mastermind group, which is like a minimum target and outrageous. Because I think it's just I'm trying to be less binary about everything and a little more shades of gray. So, so there'll be a good mix of things on the podcast. Also, when we do some master classes or something, which I have a few of, I'll record those. I'll record the audio for those, and I'll share those too, because they can be super interesting. So that might be, I did something about emotional validation, for example, for a fundraiser that I'm riding my unicycle in, and maybe I'll include the link in the show notes of this. Sorry, Jesus, totally lost my train of thought there. Maybe I'll include the link in my show notes page. And if you'd like to make a contribution, I'm riding my unicycle 160 kilometers over 2 days in about 26 days from the time of this recording. So I need to continue my training, and I need to fucking ramp it up. But I'm totally off topic. So the point is, I don't really want to get all structured and formulaic about what this podcast is going to look like. It's an opportunity for me to broadcast to you and to try to serve you through sharing what I'm learning, sharing my fuck ups, and actually sharing the shit that goes on inside my head, because I think that would be good for people to see that we're all kind of working through our own stuff, trying to figure shit out. And that's just part of life. And, if there's any remaining person who actually puts me on a pedestal, I think that when I do these daily, semi-daily cast. Maybe I better call it something else I don't put all this pressure on myself to make it daily. But I think when people see what goes on in my own head and the issues that I'm trying to work through, I believe that people will see he's just a fucking regular guy, just like we all are. And I think it might give people some permission to actually start to work through their own stuff from a place of non-judgment. I'm not always super successful in working through stuff from a place of non-judgment, but I'm trying. And I'm learning new skills constantly, and I'm teaching them, and I'm in a better place than I've ever been. And that feels pretty fucking good. So that's what I'm doing about the podcast. And I want to reiterate one thing, because I really thought a lot about changing the focus of the show from mental health to emotional excellence. And I felt there was a part of me who felt like I might have been, I don't know, letting the community down somehow, or I don't know, like walking away from a really serious obligation to help people dealing with mental health issues. And I had to spend some time thinking about that and coming to terms with it, but that's not what I'm doing. It's that I'm teaching and learning and teaching people skills that I think are profoundly important to every single person. But I also think that they make up a critical component of anybody's path towards healing. If you've dealt with trauma or invalidating experiences that are causing you a bunch of shit in your life right now. So I am still here and I am still committed, but I'm changing my focus in order to be able to help people in a slightly different way, but with skills that are, I think, even more important because they benefit everybody. So that's what I'm doing, and that's why I'm shifting my focus. So I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope that this turns out to be an amazing experience for me, and that the content is super fucking valuable for you, because that's really what this is all about. And I would love your feedback. If you ever want to come on the show, just ask. Fuck, man. If you have something interesting to talk about, we can talk about it. There's nothing more than I would love. There's nothing that I would love more than to just have more conversations in my life, because those are really, really important to me. So that's it. I think my ramble's done. I hope you love the show. And now I think that's it for this introductory episode. So stay tuned for some brand new episodes coming up soon, motherfuckers. Thanks for listening to the Emotionally Excellent Man Show. Now, go own your shit like the powerful, handsome boss man that you are.